Hello everyone, it's Michael the Mechanical here today. I am saying hello, and the Fairlane isn't here. So the Fairlane has gone in to have the gearbox sorted out. There is some oil leaks on the gearbox, rear main seal, and the kickdown cable. Now, I would probably have used to have done this sort of stuff myself in the past, but then again, I never had the car, and also I never had my health issues, so doing car stuff is very niche now. I don't need to work on cars, so I don't necessarily work on cars as much. And where I do need work done, it was when my health was crap, and I had a lot of money to have the work done for me, where my health just wasn't going to let me do it or safely. So the payout that I got helped fix things with my cars, and I stopped doing videos. My car has been done. My Triton is pretty much at the point where it is no more mechanical stuff for it to be done on it, so it's pretty good. And now we've only got a Pajero to fix before anyone will look after it at the end of the day. So the only other cars there is the ZL Fairlane at Dad's place. Whether that gets done or not, I can't tell you, because these things are just not feasible to do. And YouTube isn't an income stream. YouTube is mostly just to talk about things, and could use it for other methods of trying to create income, but it is not an income stream. It's not something that I can be an entertainer for or anything. I mean, I can come up with some good information where I have a good setup and where I genuinely want to spend the time, but otherwise workspaces end up looking like this. Now, I'd love to just share with you guys what I've been working on so you get an idea of where I'm going. Now, I'm going to say none of my work is perfect. It all sucks and I hate it, but at the end of the day, I'm looking at it from a not hates perspective, but this is a starting point. Let's get this to the finish line and then use finished products to refine crap products. So at the moment today, I just made up this little jig, and you got to understand it's not complete, it's not finished by any means necessary, and I had some limitations. For one, I used nuts for my thread, and I didn't tap any holes or anything like that because I had a tap and die set, but the tap and die set was wrong, so I couldn't utilize it. And therefore I took it back to the shop and I got my money back. With said money, I actually bought something for the lathe. I can't remember what it was. It could have been the cutters. And, okay, we'll go over, I bought cutters for the lathe because that's all I can remember buying. And I was intending to buy something else, like put it towards another kit, but now I'm at the point where it's like, maybe I just buy them as I need them. I'm not necessarily going to use them all anyway, so why spend the big money on buying a kit? I'd love to just buy a kit because then I'd have all the sizes I need for tapping and dyeing things. But I want a good quality kit. Like, it's a good quality kit that I'm looking at getting, not a crappy set. So, to understand this here jig is for holding something in here. And that something is going to then go on here and sit in here. But the problem is this block is too wide and the space in here is too small. And on top of that, this is a lot heavier than that material there. It's a much thicker material on this block. Now, my intent and my plan with this is I have an arbor that I'm actually making, and I've done some work at my dad's place on it, but I'm deciding I'm going to finish it here because too many issues trying to solve it any other way. And this piece here will sit inside of here, and that's how I will pretty much machine things. Now, there is a couple of problems with this. So let's start with the fabrication of this. As cool as this looks, there is a huge issue with it. If I set it here, it rocks. When I press here, not too bad. But when I press, it's like that. Now from here, you can't see it, but from here, you can probably see this side here is lower than this side by a couple of millimeters. And as a result of those few millimeters, it's not square. The hole is not parallel to the block. Now, the next problem I'm going to face with this when it mounts is that block, even though it's not actually sitting there squarely as I wanted it to sit, I tried hard to weld, tack it, and weld it square. I put together so many pieces of angle line and used so many clamps with a setup with this stuff, and I used a square bar to help locate the tube to then, once it's located on a hand setup, I would clamp it in here, and I clamped it in there and it just didn't come out square. So the angle line was used, and you can see there's some signs, evidence of welding slag on the screen. Yeah. So yeah, it didn't quite go to plan, which was unfortunate. And as a result of that, it's not square as I would like it to be. I would expect it to be a lot less than that. A few millimeters is no good. A few fouls, I can probably fix that easily if I know how to. Now, another thing I'll point out is if we see this little scratch mark here, that is that this point here is higher than this point here. Now, with my clamping arrangement that I did, these are both parallel. This one here sits parallel to this block here. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And for me, that's a bit of an issue. So I have this file here, and I was planning to just use it and file everything nice and flat. But unfortunately, depending on where we're filing from and to, there's a few millimeters there, and on this side, it's pretty close to flat. It's hard to really show, but there's flat, and then this side here is millimeters. The millimeters is the part of the problem where there's just too much. And the side where it's flat is ideally what I would like. Now, what's going to make this worse is the fact that I still have to cut out a bit of material from here in order for this to sit inside of the tool post so I can clamp it all together. Also, note there's a huge difference between this jig here and how heavy duty this is versus the bolts on the tool post. This is overdone because it gives me more versatility in the long term. I could put it on a bigger machine. But also, you know, that's all the material I had for this jig anyway. And the idea is I've got to sit this as close, the job as close to here as possible. So there might be a little mistake. Ideally, I should have just cut a piece off of here and not put the third bolt there, and I should have put them all here. I didn't do that. I put a bolt there and there and there. What I could do though is I could still cut a piece off here. However, probably not going to do that, and this could be my downfall with this terrible engineered design. So now what the trick is going to be for the next steps of what I'm going to do with this long term, because I have the 3 bolts in there, okay, and they're meant to clamp on something. They're meant to clamp onto the bar and hold it so that it doesn't do weird shenanigans. So this will sit in here, this tube, and the bolts will clamp against it. There's a problem with it already. How on earth are you going to maintain this being square to this at least? Now, I've come up with a solution, and in order to do that, I'm going to get some softer materials. I'm not going to use... Actually, I have some material. I might be able to get away with this. So I could cheese this. I have aluminium, but the thing is it's 70 millimeter in diameter, and that is too fat for this. So look how much material you have to lose. I don't think I want to machine that much material, so I'm going to look at alternative material types. I could use this. This is also on the market for sale if anyone was looking for a piece. And the thing about this is if I pull this out, something's going to go crashing down. I think. Nothing came crashing down. This is the other alternative, whether or not it's going to be too small, too big. I don't know, it's about the same size as this. It's a few millimeters bigger than this little piece, and this little piece is not quite big enough for that. And then if I put this over here, it's not quite big enough for that either, but it might be just enough to make a clamping jig with this. Ideally, probably still not the right diameter. I think I need something bigger than this because it's a bit small. So I have the next challenge of finding a bar that fits, because my elbow is locking up. Sorry, I don't know why it's happening. What I want to do is I want to get a piece of bar that perfectly fits in here, or is not a perfect fit per se, but something that is tight, ideally, that I can push a piece in, and then what I can do is have a hole drilled through that, and then I can bore it with a boring bar, because we have a baby boring bar, which is this one here. I can bore it with this, and then from boring it to the size that I need, I can then go from it being bored to suddenly taking that piece, put it in there, and then when I go to clamp this down, what will happen is once it's clamped down, this will be locked in place, and it won't be able to move or turn or any fancy shenanigans. And it will be in a perfect position to not really turn or do anything weird. It's probably not a perfect solution because a free jaw, this is a free jaw and it has smooth jaws on it, which it has a tendency to be wobbly and not hold things tight. Now, I don't actually have really much material. I think that's the closest thing I've got to the right dimensions, and then even then it's only one piece and it's still really, really huge. But to be a smarty pants, it is pretty close by eye to the dimensions I need. Oh, look at that. Look at that. That is the dimensions I need. And then I'd have to shape it to size, and then I could use it. It's not perfect, but it's a solution. This was actually something that probably Dad parted off, I think, and used the other piece of the material for some other thing. I was making a pull starter with this a long time ago, and that's what that was originally for. But now we found a piece of material for that could work. Not that it will, but it could. Oh, look at that. I found a bearing that suits the shaft size. Nice. It's too smooth. I wonder if this... No, too big. But this was also meant to be like a tensioner that I was making up. To tension a belt, make it tighter. But it wasn't for a tensioner per se. I was trying to just make something custom up for like motorized push bike or something. I'm looking at every little thing that I've got to get more and more ideas. I wasn't going to use this because that's a tool for Welsh plugs. It's really hard to figure out what you can use. I could use the 4140, like a piece of that, but it's worth a lot more to me as it is. It's one piece of that is worth as much as those pieces to me, essentially. Something like that. Actually, probably worth more than those. So softer material would be more ideal for clamping because it has a tendency to bind it. And if we can bind the material up to the clamping surfaces, that will reduce the risk of, in one way, damage. In another way, it will create a clamping force against it. Now, my clamping system isn't probably going to be perfect because there's going to be imperfections with it, although I can probably work around that a little bit. There's probably solutions to this that I'm not seeing yet, but it's possible. And that's where a lot of R&D is going to come into this, a lot of homework. Now, that is all the stock I have. That's all that I can work with. So, it's hard to come up with things. Also, that's my stock that I'm selling at full price. That stock there I'm selling at a discount because then it gets it out. I can move it along. And I'm pretty sure, because this stuff is worth a lot of money and it's very expensive to buy too. Okay, so it's slightly longer. They I call them 240s. For some reasons. I wonder if this is a dodgy piece here. Oh, and there's a redback. I wonder where his home is. His home is in that bar. Aha. Do you know what you do to redbacks? You cook them. Cooking torch. Oh, right. I've got carbide. This was about... This is probably worth more than what's on the ground here. Because this is a steel cut with. This was clearance though. And I bet you this is worth more than that. This is worth more than any one of those pieces. So this is worth a lot more. This cost as much as any one of those pieces cost. So most expensive material. Then this little bar here is for carbide as well. That cost about the same. Well, actually it was cheaper. I know what I'm looking for. Because business-wise, I try not to mess up. But I just noticed there might be one imperfect size in my batch. And I just want to check. This one's showing as slightly less than, it's around 45, 246. So that's a dodgy size. That's probably something I'm going to delist. Let's see. And this one here is 250. So that said, since it's pretty much 250, it's just shy of 250 actually. I think it's acceptable tolerances. It's not like I intentionally made it that size. It's what I bought. These are technically about the same length. And I feel like that's 250. This is longer. This is 250. But slightly shorter. This one's slightly shorter, and this one's a lot shorter. So this blank, not this one, it's the other one. Is there two that are too short? No, this one's still shorter than that one. I think I'll go with this is acceptable tolerances, and this one's out by a huge margin. That's 5mm material. Which isn't ideal. I think the way I'll sell that one is if someone counter offers and they do a really cheapish price, then I'll send the cheapish ones. And if they get mad, well, it was meant to be 110, but then it's like, okay, well, the listing says it's this, I want a refund, and then I'm going to have a problem, so probably not. I'm trying to think of how do I get around this? I mean, I have to advertise it as is. I can't actually sell it as anything really less. I realistically, I need to sell more. I need to sell it accurately to what size it is, and it's, well, 250 pretty much. That one's about 5mm too short, so that seems that it's stingy, and that's not on purpose either, trust me. I bought this from the auction. One piece of that other stuff. I'm treating them like they're smaller to clear them out because there's no cardboard to go with them, and because they're a little bit rusty and unprotected. These are all logistical challenges to overcome. So for me, I'm going to explain to you what my plan for financing activities with hobby and business is. At the moment, I'm actually looking into selling those materials because it helps to fund these kind of activities that I'm doing, and it helps to fund the materials. And instead of using them for personal use, and instead of doing hobby work, because I have to claim it anyway, and it's worth more to me to sell the material than to use it, I'm planning to make a rack that sits about here, and I'm going to stockpile material and build, what are they called? A material rack, and the material rack is going to have some rollers on it that you can take a piece on the roller and slide it into a bandsaw. So right now where the vise is here, and that's where the bandsaw is roughly going to be. So I think we're aiming for, that's the position it's going to actually be in. And because of how big the frames are, there's going to be one every couple of meters. So there's going to be one here, and there's going to be one here, and there's going to be one here-ish. And if I go about 3.5, it means I can add some overhang and stuff. So for business reasons, I'm going to try and sell material more than, do machining stuff like this. But otherwise, I'm doing these projects just to get things out of the way. I got a new angle grinder today for $70. I could have got one for $50. Ozito would have been cheaper than the Ryobi, which was $70. I've got the Works one, which I bought for $20 many years ago from Supercheap. But the Works one is good for grinding, and the Ryobi is good for cutting, because the Ryobi can take a bigger blade, has about the same sort of clearances, and because the Works one doesn't have the same depth of cut as the Ryobi, so Ryobi can get in there deep and cut deeper than the Works one. And I also bought it because I bought a diamond wheel for cutting the carbide, which I got told will cut it. Any angle iron disc that's diamond will cut carbide, so that's cuttable. I have this high tensile steel. It's probably used for cutters, and I'm going to use this high tensile steel to make maybe cutters sometime. And they're about the same diameter as this, I think. A little bit bigger, I think. This doesn't clamp well enough, so I just realized something. It probably could. By design, it has a little groove at the top, and then down the bottom it has a big groove. So maybe that little groove can get in there and clamp on different size material, maybe? These questions to ask, not assumptions to be made, we'll work it out. Anyway, guys, I'm going to see what I can do. It's night time. I can't really do much more. And I've got 2 days of work to do, which is Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to do 5 till 10. And then the other shift is going to be 5 till 8 on Sunday. So take care, everyone. Michael out.